Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so for this episode, guys, we've obviously got our usual segments. So we're gonna do our classic segment later on, and then obviously our hot take of the week. I don't even know what your hot take is. I'm looking for. Don't say it. Don't say it. Don't say it. And then, but before we do that though, we've got I don't know, a bit of an interesting little topic. Yeah, we've never really done anything like this before, so it'll be interesting because we haven't seen each other's list.
Yeah, but I feel like there might be a few overlaps though.
I think so.
There might be a few overlaps.
So the segment that we're gonna, you introduce it.
So the segment that we're gonna do today is the best pilots of like some of the popular TV shows, or just in general some of the TV shows. So best pilot as in the best first episode. So we're only critiquing just the first episode of each series. Does it how does it match up against other shows, and what we would like about it.
Yeah. And like, was it a reflection of the entire series? How important was it? I know one of them is going to be. I know one of them is going to be quite a big one that you're going to bring up.
Yeah.
That you brought up a few weeks ago. I'm just going to say it. Lost.
Yeah.
That was one.
Yeah.
So that like kind of set up the entire franchise.
Yeah.
And like it's funny because whenever you look at any of these lists, whatever website you go to, Lost is always on one.
Yeah, it's always on one. So I'm sure when you did your research,
100%.
It was probably either 1 or 3.
Yeah,
between 1 and 3.
I didn't realize there was a part 1 and 2.
Yeah, part 1 and 2. Yeah. So it's very important to the TV show. So.
Oh, you know what? You kick it off then.
Yeah. So let me kick off with Lost.
Yeah, you go ahead. I set you up.
So the reason I think I critiqued this episode a few. I think the first episode of our podcast a few weeks ago. So for me, I'd say Lost is probably one of the best pilots I've ever seen, mainly because it starts off instantly. So for those of you who don't know, Lost is about a TV show about a group of people who get stranded in an island, and then just basically about how they survive. The first episode basically it really starts with the plane crash, people running around, it's high drama, and it just kind of sets up the characters. I think is an ensemble cast, so the first episode kind of gives you a glimpse of what the whole show would be like, and also what type of characters we would get going forward. It's actually a really good episode because they spent a lot of money on that. They spent, I think, 14 to 50 million to make the episode.
Someone got sacked for that, right?
Someone got sacked, yeah, because they greenlit it, and I think Disney and ABC weren't sure about it, but it came out and it became a sensational hit. So
how many seasons was there of Lost?
It went for 6 seasons, right?
Okay.
But traditionally, if you ask most Lost viewers, just like every other show, it kind of takes a dive in terms of quality, and then also it's a big lore around the show in terms of do you like the ending of the show? Do you like the last season of the show? Yeah, people weren't. It's the same situation as Game of Thrones. A really good show, but a really not so good ending.
Poor ending.
Like I watched it and I'm alright with it.
Okay.
I'm alright with it, but I'm alright with it on my second viewing, if I'm honest. The first time I watched it, I was like, what is going on, man? But now the second time I watched it, I love it. Yeah. Okay, love it is a bit stronger, but I can stomach it.
You appreciate it a bit more.
I appreciate it a bit more.
Yeah. I guess similar to the Sopranos ending, where it's a bit like it's Marmite, and it's either you like it or you don't. It's hot or cold. Whereas with Game of Thrones, I think everyone just agrees it was
it's horrible.
Yeah. Anything else on Lost?
Yeah, I think it's just really good. I really like the episode. Like I can sit there and just watch that first episode and then not go back to it. That's how good it is. Yeah.
And did it set up the series perfectly?
Oh yeah, set up the series perfectly. And then also the series has a bit of like mythology around it. Has its own world around it, so we get a really good glimpse of it onto the first episode.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it's kind of got like its own mythology, supernatural.
What's that one that we watched that came out on HBO? The first season was great. Yellow Jackets, yeah. Yellow Jackets, yeah. Is it similar to that? Where it's like it's a bit otherworldly,
but it's a lot more like pronounced. Like it hits you in the face. It's quite good actually. I like it. Yeah. If you like scary psychological stuff, Lost is your show.
So you recommend it?
I recommend it. Highly recommend it.
Nice. All right, so Celine's first one is Lost for the best pilots. My first pick of the best pilots that I've got a few. The first one I'm going to go with is The Office UK.
Okay.
The Office UK. I would say it's one of the best pilots because I've never seen like a mockumentary style sitcom. So the way that series was made, it was unique to me. The Office setting obviously isn't that unique, but the way it was shot, Yeah, the characters that was brought to life in the first episode, the fact that the US version did basically the exact same episode, that tells you a lot about that pilot. They didn't change nothing. Everything was exactly the same.
Is it word for word, bar for bar?
Bar for bar. If you watch the first episode of UK version versus
I
the
think
US
I did,
version,
but I don't remember it too much.
Yeah. You never really watched the UK one.
Yeah, I never really got into The Office UK, but I think I might get into it at some point.
Yeah, it's you know what? If you watch it now, I don't think it's it won't hit the same now. I think in this era, but that's why the US version is more digestible and it's got more rewatchability. But yeah, so the UK one, I would say in terms of a pilot, was one of the most important pilots because of the mockumentary style, what it birthed, but also, like I said, with the US version. And for me personally, I prefer the UK version over the US version.
Oh, as a totality?
As a totality.
Wow.
So it only has 2 seasons, the UK version versus like, I don't know, what, 8?
9?
9.
I think 9 seasons, yeah.
9 seasons.
Of just...
First of all, nobody's in the same job for 9 years.
Yeah.
That's why it's unrealistic. To be in the same office, the same group of people for 9 years, it's just absurd.
It's just like commerciality, man. People just love making money. Yeah.
Whereas the UK version is more, I would say, realistic, where you're probably with the same group for maybe a year, 2 at the most. Somebody moves, somebody gets promoted. So that's why I like the UK version, because it's more realistic. Also, what I love about the UK version is he doesn't come. There's no like redemption quality with David Brent. Like you can't stand him, and that's
I can imagine.
Yeah. Whereas with Steve Carell's version, what's the Steve Carell's name? Michael Scott. The Michael Scott version, there is a party that feels sorry for him, especially like later on in the season. You want him to fall in love. You want him to be loved. Whereas the David Brent version, he's an egomaniac. He wants to be loved. He wants to be feared. He wants to be respected. He wants all of those things, and that's why I like it. I like it because of the fact that there is no redemption quality to him. He's just a sad man in a sad little office. Yeah. But yeah, that's one of the best pilots for me. Yeah,
and I can imagine Ricky Gervais made him like that.
Yeah. That's the whole
If you watch Ricky Gervais's things like movies and TV shows, he really goes for characters like that. Yeah. And I think one of the main reasons people probably hate him is just the way how he portrayed it. So I'm with you on that. Yeah, I will watch it at some point though.
Yeah, I recommend it. All right, your time.
So mine is Breaking Bad.
I've got that on my list, so I can wipe that away. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, Breaking Bad. So the first episode of Breaking Bad is basically, I think it's them in the desert, right?
Yes.
That show just goes crazy, man. I think the 2 characters in Jesse and Walter White, just the way it sets the scene is like high drama. Them in the RV, and I think the RV explodes or something like that. And then I really liked it because it was just it really set up the drama. You wouldn't think a high school teacher would be out here selling crystal meth. Yeah. Or at least he doesn't start selling it in that point, but it's just it kind of sets up the scene. Him and his former school student are in that process, and I don't remember too much of what happened in it, but I remember
you were hooked straight away.
I was hooked straight away. Yeah, straight away I was hooked. Yeah.
The reason why I like that first episode is because they tell you the why from jump. Yeah, he's got cancer. It's terminal. The healthcare costs in America are absurd. How is he gonna take care of his family and afford these healthcare costs? And then obviously it's making and selling crystal meth, right? Yeah. They tell you the why from jump. So as a pilot, to me, that's what I want from a pilot. I want you to tell me clearly what this series is going to be about. Because if I'm going to invest an hour and a half, I want to be sold. I want to be told, all right, listen, bro, you're going to love this straight away from jump. Either you're going to love it or you hate it, but tune in. And that's why I like Breaking Bad from the jump, because I was hooked with the story and with the why. And I was like, this science teacher is going to do what now? Yeah. This like straight-laced and, rule follower. His brother-in-law is a cop. How's he going to navigate that? Because we get introduced to Hank in the first episode as well.
His son is ill as well. Well, not ill, but his son is disabled. And like kind of how they deal with that. Right. And you instantly start to feel sorry for Walter White.
You do.
Right?
Which is messed up. Yeah. Well, actually, it's messed up afterwards.
You don't know.
Yeah, you don't know. But after that, you're like, I mean, maybe the emotion was correct. Like, this poor guy should be able to be taken care of by his state, by his country. He's been a teacher for all of these years. He's helped build societies and communities. But for some reason, the healthcare costs in America are absurd. So in that sense, we are like touched, right? We're like, all right, this guy's clearly going through it. And then also we kind of see ourselves in him as well. Whereas like, what would you do to take care of your family?
If you're broke and
man,
your teacher salary couldn't afford your cancer treatment,
and you happen to make 99% quality crystal meth. You make that good. You make that good shit. That blue. You make that blue, Salim. You know what I mean?
Yeah, them ones. Yeah.
Them ones, bro.
Yeah, I can't remember, how did him and Jesse reconcile or like get back together?
It was
was it a random?
Random, yeah. Walter White saw him and it was like, oh, I can use this guy to help me. Yeah, and Jesse was like, Mr. White, you're gonna do what?
What?
Yeah, they had their first little pitch in his yard. Yeah,
and he knows his his people, as in like his target audience.
He does.
In the middle of Albuquerque, people are depressed.
The whites, the poor whites. He's a great gateway to poor whites.
And he's the one who approached it, and then in the end, we know what sort of spoiler alert, but what sort of villain he becomes. So to see that sort of that change from him being such a lovable character to like someone you practically hate at the end of it. You're rooting against him.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not, then I'm kind of worried about who you are.
We might need to.
We want to figure out what your what you think a good person is and a bad person is. Anyway, so you got Breaking Bad and Lost so far.
Got Breaking Bad, yeah.
All right, nice one. So I had that on my list as well. So the next one that I will go for again with the idea of like I was hooked and I was told about the show straight away is Game of Thrones.
I got that on my list. I can cross
that as well. So I don't know about you, but I watched the show before I read the books. Same for you?
Okay. Yeah, I watched it afterwards. Yeah.
You hold on. What do you mean?
So I mean, I read the book afterwards. I mean,
fine. So we had the same sort of experience with Game of Thrones. So the first episode is the King Baratheon coming over to Winterfell and asking Ned to be his hand, and then obviously we've got the bastard Jon Snow. Jon Snow going to the wall. Basically, that's basically set up, right? But I was hooked straight away because of what happens in the end. When
Bran, the things you do for love,
and he gets pushed out. All of that happened in the first episode. So the universe of Game of Thrones gets told to you very, very early and in a very concise way as well. Where it's like, this is the current king. Clearly the Starks are well put together. He has a bastard child where it's like, what's happening here? The mum doesn't love him. Ned Stark goes away. Jon Snow and Ned Stark never see each other again. But don't forget the last thing that Ned Stark said to Jon, where it's like, I got something to tell you.
Yeah, next time I see you, I'll tell you more about your mom and your heritage.
And he never finds out until obviously close to like season 6 basically.
Season 6, yeah.
So the setup for me for that series in that first episode was perfect.
Yeah,
perfect.
Anything else for you? One thing that kind of hooked me is, I'm not sure if you remember, but like the first scene of the Game of Thrones is the runaway Night's Watchman who's running from I think he's running away from the Night Watch, and then he's going towards Winterfell, I think, and then he kind of encounters one of the White Walkers, and then he gets caught and he gets deserted, and the first episode starts with him being beheaded. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Or no, I don't know if it's the first episode.
It was two of them. No, it was two of them running away. One of them gets caught by the Night Walker. The other makes it to the wall, but because he escaped,
they had to cut his head off. That was a great way to start.
Yeah,
it hooked me up. But so as someone who's read the books as well, like it's they did it again word for word, bar for bar.
Yeah,
it's quite similar to how it is, and also the first episode you have the source material, so it's quite hard to deviate from that. But yeah, it was really good. The beginning of it was really good, but the ending is what really hooked you though.
Yeah.
How come this man who's having sex with his sibling kill this innocent child?
Or attempt to kill him obviously at that point. But we didn't know. Because when he gets pushed over, you think he's dead.
Yeah. And plus, at that point, the books weren't that popular. Not that many people knew about it. Yeah. So
we didn't know.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was based in a book until like
years.
I think by the end of the season. Yeah. Or by season 2 or something. Yeah.
The ending just like stamped it in it. Stamped it. Jamie, man. That Jamie's a wild boy. Anyway, so I've got Game of Thrones. Alright, you go next.
Yeah. So I've got The Boys.
I've got that one as well. No, for real. This is perfect. So
The Boys is I
know what you're gonna bring up.
It's one of the best pilots in recent years, to be fair. Like I think in the 2020s, one of the best pilots. It starts off so well because it starts off with an innocent Huey and his girlfriend I think they're going to the cinema or they've just come back from the cinema. They're just talking to each other. I think they're having an argument about where their relationship is.
Moving in, that
sort of stuff. He turns around, and A-Train, who's coked up, high, just A-Train, who's a superhero, by the way, who's the fastest superhero, just literally runs through his girlfriend, and Huey's holding her hand, and next thing you know is, I think
you're right.
He closed his eyes, right, or something.
It happened so fast. I didn't realize
so fast, and then all you see is him just holding his girlfriend's hands, and his girlfriend
amputated hands. Yeah.
Just all you see is blood, and then I love the fact that the way they pause the blood, and the next the blood just goes in his face. Do you remember that scene?
Yeah, you're right. That's how it happens, isn't it?
It introduces just the world of Vought and the craziness with the superheroes, the cover-ups, how the fact that a city needs a superhero to keep them safe. And also introduces a Homelander, who is one of the best villains. So I tried to watch the first episode yesterday, or a few days ago, of season 4 when it came out, and I couldn't get into it because I just couldn't remember most of it. So I was like, let me rewatch it. But while I was watching that bit, it did a recap of everything, and it was just about Homelander being evil.
Just a Homelander highlight.
Yeah, Homelander highlight, and then also Homelander shooting the guy with his eyes, and then everyone else clapping him, and him being
great meme.
Yeah. I forgot what the context of that meme was. So I watched it. I was like, he just killed someone. Why
they're all clapping him?
Why they're clapping for him? But it's a really good episode. How did you find it?
Yeah, The Boys was definitely, because I had 5 on my list. Yeah. The Boys was one of the ones. So the reason I put it up there is because of that first scene. Yeah. Because of what you just described with his girlfriend. It
hooks you straight away.
Straight away. It tells you what the show is about straight away. It tells you about the anti-superhero. Because before that, I didn't know what the show was about. So when we think superheroes, we think good guys. Yeah. Straight away, our head goes to
that.
Yeah, right? So the Marvel era that we're in, we think superheroes, we think good guys. Obviously, Thanos made it a bit different. But then with this show, I was like, okay, cool. So it's going to be a show about superheroes. And then one of the apparent superheroes runs through someone and kills them. It's like you're instantly like, oh, this show is not what I expected. Yeah. It's a show about anti-superheroes. It's a show about cover-ups and corporations just milking it for money. Because I'm watching season 3 ahead of season 4. Okay. Because I was like, completely forgot about season 3.
I need to do. So you're starting.
I think 2 years ago,
Yeah, it came out. You're right. So are you watching it each episode, or you skipping episodes?
No, I'm watching each episode. One, but you can watch a YouTube quick highlight of what season 3 was, a recap. Yeah. But because I had the time, I was like, you know what, let me just rewatch season 3. And that first episode really does depict the entire series. Yeah. How Huey needed revenge for what happened to his girlfriend. Butcher obviously seeking him out because Butcher knew that he needed to build his little network,
little crew, yeah.
And then he needed people who wanted revenge. So Mother's Milk hates Soldier Boy, Huey hates A-Train, Butcher hates Homelander because of what he did to Becca. So everyone has their own motivation. So that first episode, chef's kiss, man.
It's a good episode, man.
That's a good one.
It hooks you instantly. And the first season as a whole is really good though.
Yeah,
it's one of the best first seasons I've seen in a very long time.
Season 3 bands as well, man. I'm watching that now and I'm like, bro, Celine, I'm like, this is great because usually what we know as well, with season 3s and 4s,
it goes down. Especially for a show like that.
Yeah,
it's not like some of the typical shows that we know where it's kind of easier to write.
Yeah,
where shows like The Boys, where even though there's a source material in the comics, right?
Right.
It's still very hard to write and get the topics correct, and they do it so well, man. Yeah. I really hope season 4 is the same as well.
Yeah, I hope so too. And obviously the introduction of new characters help. So bringing in Soldier Boy add a whole new element.
Season 2 is my favorite though. I'm not gonna lie.
Do you like it? Yeah.
With the I can't remember Starlight.
Nazi.
Yeah. She was so good.
That was a wild season.
That was a wild season.
So much happened. All right, so The Boys. I'm glad you put that on there because I didn't think you'll have that.
Yeah, I have that.
So we've got 4 so far. Let's pick one more. Okay. You give me your list. What else you got left in there?
So I have Twin Peaks.
Oh, that's up there with a lot.
It's up there. You've seen it in the list, right? I watched it and I liked it. I have Twin Peaks, Chernobyl.
Go, keep going.
Chernobyl.
And you got one more, right?
Sopranos, and Criminal Minds.
Let's talk about Chernobyl.
Chernobyl, yeah.
Because we talk about Sopranos quite a lot in this show already.
Yeah, I think this is becoming the Sopranos show.
Yeah.
You watched it, right?
Chernobyl.
I So Chernobyl is, for those who don't know, is kind of it's pretty much, or it is based on real life. It talks about the nuclear disaster in Ukraine in 1986. Yeah, 1986. And if the first episode is a 10-episode thing, and it kind of highlights, why it happened, how it happened, and also the aftermath. The first episode focuses on how it happened. So it talks about the radiation, the nuclear people who work there, and it's a lot more gut wrenching because what's coming. And the first episode, halfway through, you start to realize the scientists see there's something wrong, and they try to get the nuclear reactor correct or sort out the issue that's happening, but they just can't do it. And it also talks about the people in the neighborhood as they're living their life, and something crazy is about to happen. Like it's on the edge stuff. I need to go back and watch it because it sets up the first episode, and then also the fact that it's based in real life kind of helps the show a lot more. So yeah, I think it was on the edge stuff.
Yeah.
What did you think of it?
I loved it because that intensity in the first episode is even higher because you know what's about to happen.
That's what I was looking for, intensity.
Yeah, it's like, boy, you're just sitting on the edge of the seat, like, when is the reactor going to explode? So yeah, that's what I loved. The other thing I loved about it was because of the I guess the political context of the time, like just during the Cold War, not the height, but it's towards the end. Like the Berlin Wall's about to fall in 5 years, 6 years.
3 years, I think.
Yeah. So the reason why this is important is because it's the Soviets versus America, right? It's about the cover up as well. The Soviets don't want to admit that this thing happened in Ukraine because it will belittle the party. It will belittle the Cold War. It will belittle their position in the world as well. So that cover up is actually obviously what happened to the reactors awful, right?
Yeah.
But the cover up was even more awful for me because the cynicism behind it, and all those lives that were affected to this day.
Yeah, 35 years on, 36
cancer,
years
like
on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't even go to that area.
You can't. I think it will take. I think it takes like 100 years just to get to normal. So
that's crazy.
Like the 22nd century is when it will start to be actually people like remotely habitable.
Yeah.
I think there's people who still visit now because there's a little bit of tourism on there. Like,
like they wear their masks.
Yeah, the mask. But you have to be crazy to like risk radiation.
I'm cool.
I'm alright.
Yeah. You know what? I'll just watch a show.
Yeah.
And
same.
I'll get it.
Yeah, same. So I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
And that happened also. You're right. It is about the Soviet Union, right? So I don't know if you remember, but the first episode, the reason why they reacted to it really slowly is because there was a lot of sign off. You have to call this person. He's asleep. He has to call his boss. Yes. His boss has to agree. Then they have to come up with a plan. And then by the time they were doing that, everything exploded.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's so gut wrenching, and it's just the intensity of that first episode is so good. It hooks you up straight away, and also because it's what kind of happens with those shows that are based in real life is people think, you know what, I don't want to watch that because I don't need to watch that because I already know what it's about. But the way they filmed it, the way they did it, it's really good. I liked it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you actually. That's a great point. Like on the dramatization of real life events, like sometimes it can highlight the tragedy of that moment of what happened there. Obviously, sometimes it's a bit like, all right, well, we could have done more at the time rather than just like waiting and creating a great little Hollywood flick about it. But for this particular one, this show, HBO smashed it because it was an HBO production. Yeah, and
HBO goes crazy with their productions.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a given. But it was really good. It was really good. Yeah, it came out like 4 years ago, right?
2019, I want to say.
2019, 2020.
I think it's before COVID. Definitely before COVID.
Definitely before COVID, yeah.
All right, that was the best pilots that we've seen in recent memory. That was fun, man.
Yeah,
that was fun.
I liked it.
Yeah. It is an interesting topic in it because, I mean, because what happens, correct me if I'm wrong, with pilots. So, after a pilot is made, the studio then decides to pick it up. Is that what happens?
To pick up for a full series, yeah.
So you get a budget for a show.
You only get budget for the first episode, yeah.
So we create that first episode, which is called the pilot. We show it to the studio, and then from then they can either decide to shelve it. Yeah. It's done. Forget it. It's shit. We move on. Or this is great. let's put all the money behind it and create a series.
And then in that process, the studio, I don't know how it was for cable, but I think in network TV, they, especially in America, they do like testing. So you film it, and they'll get like potential viewers and be like, okay, what do you think of this show? Do some focus groups, and then if they're happy with it, then they film it. So usually in America, the pilots are always filmed in the month of May to April. Okay. And then after that, if it gets
the pitching
up,
begins,
the pitching begins, and if it does get picked up, the filming begins in like June, July, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's why pilots are important because it's banked on your entire series being rolled out. And also from an actor's perspective, like let's say you get the job for a pilot, then you move wherever. You live in New York, you go to LA, or you live in London, you go to LA. You're fixated on the series being picked up because of like your commitment to you moving across and all of that stuff. That's a lot. That's
a good example of that is New Girl. So in the first episode of New Girl, you see Coach is in there, right? So Coach was on another TV show.
The Wayne's son guy.
Yeah, he was on another TV show on I think it was on New Girls on Fox, and then the show he was on before was on ABC. But that show they weren't too sure whether it was going to get cancelled or was going to get picked up. It was looking like it was going to get cancelled, so he decided to audition for other shows, and he auditioned for New Girl, and he got the New Girl pilot. He filmed the pilot, but afterwards, while they're doing the green, the pitching, his show that he was on ABC got renewed. So he was contractually obliged to go back to his old show.
Wow.
So he's only in the first episode of New Girl. Then obviously he does turn up in the fewer seasons once the show that he was in gets cancelled. But yeah,
that's true. You can commit. So he gets replaced by
Winston.
Winston, yeah.
So you can commit to something, and then that's something that might not work out. So it could be the biggest thing or the best thing that you do, or a time waster.
Yeah.
So it's just a hit and miss.
Hit and miss. That was the first segment, Best Pilot. When we come back from this break,